What's cracking with you people? Anansi here, and welcome back to My Two Cents. In this one, I want to talk about the anti-consumer practices of the Nintendo gaming company. So, Nintendo has a beloved name in the gaming industry. It is the juggernaut of the gaming industry. It is the Disney of the gaming industry. It's one of the pillars that holds the gaming industry up. If it wasn't for Nintendo, gaming as we know it would probably not be as big as it is today, considering that, especially in America, considering that it basically saved us from the gaming crash of the 1980s. That being said, Nintendo has slowly but surely been implementing a policy that has stripped away the autonomy and agency of its consumers, forcing them into a system where you will rent everything and own nothing and be thankful for it. So, where do we begin? Well, for one thing, Nintendo has always been very protective of its IP. It has also been very, very greedy with its IP. Starting from the mid 2000s, Nintendo has been one of the biggest abusers of the copyright system when it came to online content creation. They did not like people recording their games. That has eased up a bit in recent years now that people kind of see the power of streaming and the influence it has on the game, on whether or not someone picks up and buys a game or not. On the other hand, Nintendo has also had a bad habit of basically not lowering their prices once a new game comes out and keeping them absurdly high to the point of being restrictive. I remember in 2013, 2014, I had come back from college for a semester, or not for a semester, but I think for like the summer or for spring break, and I had gone up to buy Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii back when Project Landfall, I think it was, going on, and I bought that game for $80 because of how expensive it was, but it was a game I desperately wanted. I see Mario Galaxy, a launch title for the Wii back in 2005, I think, 5 or 6, and it was still $60. It was still $60. Even used, it was like 55. They priced the game was priced so high to be the point of why even pick it up. Now by this point, Mario Galaxy 2 had been out for half the time, at least 3 to 4 years at this point. So there would be no reason to pick up Mario Galaxy and Galaxy 2 for $60. You would just pick up one or the other because Galaxy 2 was just Galaxy 1 but without the story. Mostly because apparently Miyamoto did not like Rosalina's story in the first Galaxy game for some odd reason. So Galaxy 2 had no story whatsoever. As a result, I just looked at that and I just looked at that and just went, that is ridiculous. Galaxy cannot be that good. On top of that, you also have the problem of the Nintendo eShop. Now, Nintendo, like every other gaming company on the planet, embraced the online ecosystem and what that could do for games, updating their games as necessary, and putting out DLC where needed. Well, unlike every other gaming company that lets you tie your game purchase to your account, Nintendo had the bright idea of tying it to the hardware. Now, I understand why they did it. It was to prevent people from downloading the game onto their friend's account, onto their friend's gaming device, and getting a free game that way. One way you could have tied around it is by tying that game to the account. So if you didn't have the account ID, you couldn't play it. But I digress. the way they got around this concern was by locking it to the console itself, to the device itself. So if you had, say, a Nintendo 3DS or a Nintendo DS, and you upgraded to a 3DS, and you wanted to download your games onto your 3DS, congratulations, you have to go off and buy the game again on your 3DS. So basically, every console that would come out for Nintendo would be another sale on that game for someone who wants to play that game on that new console. Not everybody has that kind of money, Not everybody wants to buy the new thing to be able to get the new game that comes out on it, and then to go back and rebuy the old game, or keep up with their old consoles to play their old games on it, when you could just, I don't know, pay the old download games. Like, physical media is another thing entirely, because at least you have the physical disc and you have the physical cartridge and the console that goes with it. For the most part, consoles don't die. It's very hard. At least it takes a long time for it to happen. I had my original Xbox for like 20 years before the disc drive finally gave out on me. One of these days, I want to get that thing restored, but that's neither here nor there. Where was I again? Oh, right. So when it comes to the online thing, it's like, okay, well, I want to get a couple of games from the old Nintendo library, specifically the Metroid games. I had a Game Boy at one point that got stolen, and I didn't have a job for the longest time. Because again, this Game Boy I was stolen when I was like 9 or 10. So of course I wasn't gonna have a job then, but as I got older and wanted to get into this content space, as well as wanted to experience more of the games that I kind of just skipped out on when I was younger, specifically Metroid, I said, okay, let me get a job so I can kind of get the money together to get one of these games. Didn't get a job that paid enough till much later, and by the time I got a job, the Switch was about to come out. So I said, okay, I'm gonna get a Nintendo Switch, and then I'll buy the games off of the eShop onto the Switch. Because in my opinion, I probably wasn't gonna get another console with the Nintendo. Well, my mindset was, here's my mindset. Here's what my mindset was. The Nintendo Switch is basically a console and a handheld all at once. There is no need to make a separate handheld device ever again, with the Switch being what it is. So now all of their software will go straight into their hardware, and they won't be spending extra money making different hardwares. I thought the Switch was the future of hardware console gaming. It made sense to me. If anything, you'd only have to make like a bigger version of it, or make a bigger version of the console, and then push it until it can't go anymore, and then just make a more powerful version of it in the same space, which to some extent is what the Switch 2 is. But the Switch 2, in my opinion, came a bit too soon and hasn't justified its existence yet, but that's another discussion for another time. The big thing I thought was, okay, well, once this comes out, they'll port all their stuff to the eShop onto the Switch, because I had heard about, at this point, I had heard about the locking the game you buy to the console that you get. So I'm like, okay, I'll get this console, download onto that, and I'll be fine. Lo and behold, it turns out that all these old games, A, won't be released immediately, and B, are going to be tied behind a subscription paywall. So if I want to play one game, I have to pay a subscription fee to pay that one game for like an hour. And then I have 30 days of a subscription that I'm just not going to use again, because I only want to play that one game. You know what I mean? It's too much money for what you're getting out of it, realistically speaking. Even if you're a kid, because most kids are going to have like, well, nowadays, they're going to be running around outside now, thankfully speaking. But most kids probably aren't going to be playing, like, are going to have, on average, probably 2 consoles in the house, and they're only going to play one of them recurrently, and it's probably not going to be a Nintendo. Just keeping it real there. It's going to be a Switch and a PlayStation, or a Switch and an Xbox, but it's not going to be both, realistically speaking. So, you paywalled most of your old library in a way that is restrictive to actually playing it, and then you don't even port all of your games over to it. Like, one of the big things that they failed at was the Wii U. They didn't port all of their Wii U games to the Switch. They did eventually port Xenoblade Chronicles X, which I was happy for, but I was waiting for Twilight Princess to be ported to the Switch because Twilight Princess is still locked to the Wii U and the Wii. And now the Switch 2 is out. If they do announce a Twilight Princess, that's when I'll get a Switch 2. Like, I'm keeping it honest with you. And the main reason why is that I wanted to use the Wolf Link amiibo in Breath of the Wild, but I couldn't really use it effectively because the Wolf Link amiibo has this thing where if you have Twilight Princess and you get to a certain floor of the dungeon with a certain level of hearts on Wolf Link, your Wolf Link amiibo will then have that many hearts in game. And I wanted to play Breath of the Wild with that Wolf Link companion. So either I get a Wii U to play that one game, which would be, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time I got a console for like one or two games. I got a PSP to get just to play Daxter and Dead or Alive Paradise, and that's about it. I don't think I'll get anything else on the PSP whatsoever. But to get a Wii U just for Twilight Princess is frankly ridiculous. And I'm still wondering why they haven't ported it to this day. But now I'm digressing. What I'm basically getting at is that if they do end up porting Twilight Princess, it will most likely be through the Nintendo eShop and most likely on one of the paywalled services. One of the paywall subscription services. And honestly, I'm gonna have to give the Nintendo fanboys some flack for this, because if they hadn't engaged with this practice, and granted, I can't put it all at their feet. I know that there's gonna be parents out there who buy their kids Nintendo consoles and they want to buy them games on it and stuff like that. But if we had raised a bigger stink about this, if the wider Nintendo community had raised a bigger stink about this, saying this is very unfair practices and this will escalate into something absolutely terrible, and voted with their wallet and just never bought the stuff again, because I do know for a fact that there are people who bought new consoles and then bought the same thing again on that console, we probably wouldn't be in this predicament. And now Nintendo's at a point to where it's trying to make money hand over fist in one of the most predatory ways possible. And I don't know if this is, I doubt that this is on the developer side. I doubt the developers thought this up, because most developers are mostly in it for love of the game. This is definitely one of those, the new CEO of Nintendo is a major corporate windbag, and he is all about trying to make as much money as possible. This reeks of his ideas. This reeks of his idea. So I don't know what we can do at this point, because it's unfair to paywall those games behind those subscription services, and even then, most of them don't control that well, because they're live streamed to your console instead of, being downloaded to the console itself so it can play natively. I was trying to play Star Fox 64, and I remember I had to basically play like 6 seconds ahead because the game was lagging so hard. It's just frankly ridiculous, and I hope they change that practice, make it to where you can physically, well, not physically buy, but, download the game to your console, to your hardware. But I don't see that happening, and it probably won't happen for at least a decade, which is unfortunate for some of us. But, yeah. I just wanted to say that because I thought it was important to at least get that out there, get that conversation going, because part of me desperately wants to launch some kind of petition or some kind of movement that would force Nintendo to change how the eShop works for their classic game library. Because I get that newer games and other third parties you can 100% buy and download straight to your console. I get that. I'm not going to knock that. I'm talking about their classic gaming library and their expanded first party titles from consoles gone by. And it's just, it feels like they don't want to do it on purpose, and it honestly feels like the Nintendo Switch 2 was a game console specifically created to counter the workaround to this, because there was a Switch cartridge that I forget the name of. I'll be sure to add it in post, but there was a Switch cartridge that you could download your Nintendo games to. You could download the ROMs to, of all these classic Nintendo games, and then play it off that cartridge, because a lot of these old Nintendo games are so small that you could literally fit almost all of them on one Nintendo Switch cartridge. And Nintendo couldn't get around that. They couldn't lock the game. They couldn't make that illegal or impossible to play on your Switch. So they made the Switch 2, which works on a keycard system. At least for now. I heard that they might be changing that up because I think it caused too many problems, as opposed to the problem we're trying to solve. But they made the Switch 2 run on a keycard system where if you plugged in something that wasn't registered as a official Nintendo product or official Nintendo hardware or software, it would brick your console. It's not that it wouldn't play it, it would brick your console and you had to buy a new one. My question with that was, when I first heard about this, is what happens in the event that that the console has a misread and the software is labeled as not being official Nintendo software, despite it being an official Nintendo software, and it bricks the console there. What happens then? Are you just out of luck? Will Nintendo replace it for you? No, they're most likely going to make you buy a new one, because that's how Nintendo's been rolling for the last couple of years. It's frankly ridiculous, and I think we as consumers need to take a stand and make it known we do not like this. We want to be able to buy and own the software that's being put out on the market. Because now it's to a point where I think like NVIDIA's trying to rent out your RAM to you. RAM's already expensive enough as is. And then I think I heard something about PlayStation implementing a rent a console feature. This is become ridiculous. What happened to, I work hard, I get what little bit of money I have, I buy it and I own it. Where was the comfort in that? You don't even get that comfort anymore. I'm telling you guys, we need to keep an eye on the ball here, because if we don't, we're going to get to a point where we will own none of the titles we have, to the point where it wouldn't surprise me if they tried to retroactively make older consoles break the system because you have the actual disc on you. And it's like, oh well, you have the disc on you, well we can't have that. Break the console. Now you have to rent the software again. It's like, dude, come on, you know. And again, maybe that might be an extreme example, an extreme idea to have, but I wouldn't put it past these people. I really wouldn't. Well, at any rate, we're going to call it there for today. I just want to get my thoughts out there, because this has been bugging me for the last couple of months. So, this has been Anansi. It's been my 2 cents. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Has Nintendo gone too far? Or is it to a point where we can't reel it back in? Or will it take a lot more action on our part to get it to reel back in? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm eager to hear from you guys. Peace.